I spent the last 7 days without any social media, video games, or any other kind of hyper-stimulating activity, and the results are somewhat unexpected. But before I share my results, I need to destroy the limiting beliefs that you have about starting a dopamine detox. Because realistically, 95% of people watching this will never take action. And if you're one of them, click off now. From this point, there will be minimal edits. Watching this video fully is the first step to actually restore the damage done to your brain once and for all. So let's start with a story. Ever since I started self-improvement, I've always been looking for some work that I could do alongside going to the gym. For example, back in May, me and my friends tried creating a YouTube channel about space, like literally space. And then I moved on to create YouTube shorts. Then I went on to do coding, then on no code. No code's basically like drag and drop website builder that you can actually use to create like functioning websites. But all of that didn't matter because what I actually needed was a dopamine detox, which I can only understand now after I've done it. So first of all, we all have an idea that a dopamine detox is good for you. Of course, at varying levels of understanding, but in general, we all know it's good for you, right? But still, you haven't done it yet. I'll tell you why. The most common limiting beliefs that people have, the reasons which they give, like most people give, which might be you, is that they feel like I just simply don't need it right now. I will do it in X amount of time because this week I have to start researching on the top 7 ways of making money and just trying each thing so that like one's gonna stick, right? Just like meditation, dopamine detox is needed at the time when you don't feel like doing it or you're just too busy to do it. Either way, it is your ego that is holding you back from doing this. And I know it doesn't feel good to hear this, but that's literally the case with every single self-improvement lesson out there. It sucks to hear, but it's true. But don't worry, bro. I do understand you, and that's why I made this video for you, so that you can find your reason to actually do this. Because if you're a man, like a masculine man, you need 2 reasons. The first one is the good reason. And the second one is the real reason. For me, my good reason was actually to just follow a system that I created in the vacation diligently. It is basically to upload weekly videos on this channel even after my colleges reopen and the time available is reduced. And just basically to save my brain from being contaminated by the bullshit of Indian colleges. Actually, it happens worldwide, but that's a story for another video. And my real reason, like if I'm being honest, my real reason was just to get a topic to make a full guide video on. The good reason could be pretty similar to mine or like on the same lines but for a different thing. But your real reason could be anything, like literally anything. Yes, it could also be what you're thinking in your mind. And remember, it should preferably be something that you just feel as if nobody should find out about this. Because that is what will actually keep you going. As that is your inner core desire inside of you that you just can't fake. Now, whatever bits of knowledge that you have about dopamine detox, just delete it. Yes, that's because I'm about to give you a bro science version of dopamine detox straight from Dr. Andrew Huberman's podcast. And also, before hearing my words, do read this disclaimer. Now everyone knows that dopamine is this feel-good chemical that is released inside of your brain. Now the reason why it exists is, let's use an example to understand this. Let's say there's a man 10,000 years ago who needs to provide for his wife and children. Now to do that, he needs to go hunting the boar or just fighting with saber-toothed tigers and just protecting himself from like the dinosaurs or something. No, not dinosaurs. But you get the point. But there's a problem because no human ever feels like doing all these hard, dangerous tasks. But if he doesn't do this, that basically means his family starves to death. Now, you see, there is an obvious conflict over here. Now, to fix this conflict, evolution just kind of rolled out a software update. It's just an analogy. Now, after this update, the man's brain just released a kind of chemical that makes him feel good whenever he does something hard that ensures his survival and in turn the survival of human species. Because one of the main purpose of evolution is to ensure the survival and the continuity of any given species. So the last time when you did something hard, painful, like working on your business, doing good progress, and just working out in the gym, anything like that, you have felt good. That's because to your brain, the way it interprets it is like, for example, when you make good progress in your business and make money, your brain thinks that you have more food security and you're likely to survive more, like protection, like you can, if you make like a shit ton of money, you have a good house, you might have bodyguards to protect you. That basically signals your mind that you have increased the likelihood of your survival. Similarly with the gym, your mind thinks that you have become stronger and your ability to protect yourself has increased. And anything that you do which increases your survival, like the likelihood of survival, is rewarded by your brain. And this is what creates this positive feedback loop that is what we call dopamine. Back in the old days, the way dopamine worked was very simple. If you just increased your likelihood of you surviving and procreating, your dopamine levels would increase. But that was only until the past few 100 years ago. And that's because a few nerds who studied biology, they created these substances which were used to artificially trigger this dopamine hit inside of your brain, and that's what we call drugs. Now, there was one problem with that. It was a physical product, and that means the reach of that product was limited, at least in most parts of the world, and it was banned also later. But then came the internet, and by now almost everyone has access to internet. And with that came these tech nerds from Silicon Valley who studied psychology, biology, whatever it is. They created these websites and platforms that we use every day, and the concepts were the same, almost the same, to give dopamine hits artificially. Now, they optimized it even more by implementing tactics from gambling. And that's basically to not give the dopamine hit in every video that you see. Like if you just scroll anytime on Instagram Reels or TikToks, you will find that not every video is the satisfying video. It is once in every 3, 4, 5, whatever. It's random. That's the point. The reason why they made it random is because so that you keep on searching for that dopamine hit. And that's as close as you can get to giving artificial dopamine hits to as many people as you can around the world. But then came the biggest problem. Now, to really understand this problem, you have to understand how dopamine actually works inside of your body. I'm not talking about the previous examples I gave. I'm not going to repeat anything. I'm talking about the levels of dopamine. For example, the baseline, the spikes, all of those things. So for this, I'm going to use an analogy. Because if I just explain it to you straightforward, I'm going to be seen as a nerd, which I don't want. So I hope it does well to explain you how it basically works. Imagine an isolated community in a remote part of the world that doesn't have access to electricity. But then someone decides to build a wind farm over there. Okay, for all you gasoline nerds, a coal power plant over there. Either way, the power plant has enough capacity to power the whole community. But then the government of that area decides to build a nuclear test facility, a particle accelerator, a hadron collider, whatever they call it. But that test facility is taking electricity from the same power plant that the local community is dependent on. Now, assuming all the variables remain the same and no additional electricity comes into the area, what's gonna happen? A few homes in the local community will face a blackout every time the test facility is running, right? The longer the time the test facility runs, the less power will go to the local community. I think that's obvious by now. Just like the way the local community requires a constant supply of electricity, even your mind requires a steady supply of dopamine to keep your baseline levels intact and in turn keeping a healthy mood. The way the community faces a blackout when electricity is just taken from them, similarly, you feel depressed when you get too many dopamine hits, which forces your body to just reduce the baseline level of dopamine because it doesn't have enough to feed it. And if you watch Hamza, you have heard him many times saying that indulging into instant gratification gives you that temporary hit of dopamine but then reduces the baseline level of dopamine inside of your body later. The reason why it does it is because when you get a burst of dopamine inside of your mind, like you see in this diagram, your baseline, there isn't enough to sustain the current level of baseline, hence it needs to be lowered because there is obviously a limited amount of anything in your body at a particular time. I think this was a pretty lengthy explanation that I gave, but I think this was the most accurate analogy that I could think of based on what I learned from Dr. Andrew Huberman's podcast basically. And I genuinely think that this is all that you will ever need to know about dopamine. Now, it's finally time to reveal the effects of dopamine detox in my life. But before I do that, I need to be assured that you will start a dopamine detox today. And to do that, I have a way. Pause the video right now, go down to the comments and write a comment stating that you have started a dopamine detox today and for whatever amount of time you want, 24 hours, 2 days, 7 days, whatever it is. And once the time is done, I would like if you would come back and post updates about it using like the edit button or the replies so that other people watching this video in the future can be motivated and inspired to do the same thing. And if you still have some limiting beliefs that I haven't addressed about, you might find people who have shared their situation who you can relate to, and you can just reply to them asking about their experience, telling them to share more about it, and I think that will help you more than me. So write a comment now and read the comments after you're done watching this video. So if you're still watching till here without skipping any parts, you might remember me at the start of the video just walking up to a book and then opening it and then finding out that the results of the dopamine detox were kind of unexpected. I'll tell you what was exactly written in that book. I tore that page, by the way. So for whatever reason, if the camera couldn't focus it, I'll just repeat. I lied about not failing. That's because on 2 of the days, I did fall back to the distractions. You can see it as an excuse, but for me it was on 18th of November, the world's most powerful, like the biggest and the most powerful rocket launched for the second time, and I just couldn't miss it. It's called the Starship if you just want to check it out. It's very cool. And the second one, well, all of the Indians already know it because it was 19th of November and it was the Cricket World Cup final. And if you're in India and it's a day of an important cricket match, it's basically impossible to not be distracted. But that's besides the point. My point is that you will fail. You will slip back to your old bad habits. But remember, that is the part of the process. Because you see, I could have just showed you the 5 to 6 good days that I have done of the dopamine detox and just skipped out the 2 to 3 bad days. But then I believe in being authentic. And remember, nobody has ever managed to cut off these modern addictions instantly. It takes intention, practice, and most importantly, time. For example, don't focus on eliminating the social media. Instead, focus on reducing the number of hours that you spend on the app per month. Because that is what will actually fix that habit of yours of just clicking on that icon of whatever Instagram or TikTok, whatever it is, just clicking on that icon without even knowing it. Because currently, your mind isn't strong enough to just be productive every day. Now, our main goal with the dopamine detox is to just increase the number of productive days that you have per month. In fact, if it wasn't for this dopamine detox, I would have never finished this video. Even though it took more than a week, it's like 10 days by now, but still, this is my first full guide video and it is progress. So if you have watched this video till here, then you are amongst the 5% of people who's willing to improve. Now, it's up to you whether you take action and be a part of the top 1%. So if you found this video helpful, just leave a like and hit the subscribe button and just leave a comment about your experience if you actually do a dopamine detox, because it helps this video in the YouTube algorithm and it reaches more people. And until then, accept what you can't change, change what you can't accept. Mwah.